A weaver since 1998, Denise Kovnat has taught virtually and at conferences and guilds across the United States, Canada, and Australia. She focuses on parallel threadings, collapse techniques, painted warps, and deflected double weave. In 2022, would you like to grab a book? 2022, she published a book on collapse techniques, weaving outside the box, 12 projects for creating dimensional cloth. In addition to her award-winning work and during exhibits, she's most proud of helping to establish the Weaving and Fiber Arts Center, which opened in Rochester, New York in 2002. Denise has a website, denisekovnat.com. Okay, welcome, Denise.
Thank you. Relax. So Echo Threadings. Echo is not a weave structure. It's a series of techniques that have emerged, and they've been around a long time, which you will hear. But we've named them thanks to the venerable, inimitable Alice Schlein. We've named them Echo. Why do I love them so? Because I like to paint warps, and one painted warp is great. Two painted warps is even more fun. So these pieces I have on exhibit here, just before I begin, this piece is part of a two-piece homage to Harriet Tubman, who, by the way, spent her final years in Auburn, New York, not far from Rochester, living in the same town as Seward, who was Lincoln's Secretary of State. So I feel, we have an affinity with her, don't we? So this is, Harriet always had a shawl on. So this is Harriet's shawl. So we got Echo as double, Echo as Echo, Echo as gin. We've got a painted warp where I wound it black and beige and painted it. So I already had an Echo threading. Echo calls for two colors in the warp. So you get this very nuanced pattern, right? Then in the middle, I used an active weft, which draws it in. It's a little more comfortable around the neck. So there's just the opportunity to work with colors with Echo is unparalleled. Nothing like it. So I'm kind of a cheerleader for Echo. So this whole presentation is to give you, maybe kind of lure you in to these techniques, make you think about how you might maximize color. There's so much color blending that can go on with Echo that it's driven me it's driven me to give a talk on Johannes Eaton's color chords and Echo, because we're working with color duos, color trios, color quartets, and what we get are effects that the eye perceives differently than what's really happening in the color itself. And you art students out there know this, that we get the bezel effect, simultaneous contrast, that Joseph Albers loved so much. So off we go. The top piece is a coat I wove on 12 shafts in a 12-shaft Echo pattern with two painted warps. I call it pink and green. One of the warps was fuchsia, purple, anything in that range of the color wheel. And then the other warp was green and gold and yellow and orange. And then I lined it, because I can't sew, I didn't line it. I fused a China silk to the fabric as a lining. And so what you're looking at are two different drafts, shadow weave and rep, which are nearly identical. And the top on the right is a rep top.
If all members online could mute themselves, thanks.
So this rep does not normally lend itself to a garment, right? But I weave with a weft of silk, bias cut habitized silk that I get from Dharma. It's ribbon, and it gives it a light enough hand that it could be used as here as a boat neck top or vest. So this is going to take you through the many iterations from echo to gin to shadow weave to rep to double weave, all on one warp, just by varying your tie-up and tread length. If you really want to get detailed, you can vary your set. Definitely want to pay attention to your beat. So top of the coat is gin, the bottom of the coat is echo. And there's a bit of piping in the middle because as all of you understand, I ran out of one type of fabric. Rep weave with thick and thin wefts, and that's all it is a parallel threading, ascending point twill, right? And you can see the line where it is paralleled, like harmony in music almost. Two different colors. Trompe is writ. It's a 12 shaft, so it's 6 up and 6 down. That means every time color A is on top, warp is on top, color B, its next door neighbor, is underneath. That's all it is. And that allows the patterns to follow each other. That's why it's called echo. I don't know, early textiles and tea, Janet Phillips from England. Many of you may have her book. I can't remember the name of the book. She's a wonderful weaver. Started talking about shrep. And she was laughing. She's talking about shadow weave and rep, and they're identical. The only difference is set, beat, and weft yarns. The threading, the tie-up, and the treadling are identical. So I didn't even know that when I wove this. And have you ever done that where you just weave something? I mean, it's, some plan for 5 months, or in my case, 2 years, and it turns out bad. And then you just, I really mean it, right? You just go, I don't know, you're in some kind of zone. I don't know what it is. I wish I could get there all the time. And you just go, no, I'm going to do this. And I used real silk from the cocoon, which we don't normally use. We use spun silk, which is much more easier to break. Real silk is friggin' pulled it from the cocoon in the gum. It's a football field long or more. I degummed it with a friend, never did it before, didn't sample, wove this, and wove something that I didn't even realize I was doing, but it's wrapped without the thick and thin. So this is real silk, approximately like, say, 62 grist or 72. You can't really tell in a way. Because you get your McMillan and you put it on top of the refrigerator and you're still cutting. So I just figured it's about 72, and then I put in.
Show it more to the camera. People on Zoom, it's hard to see.
Toward the camera.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So I used 122 silk as weft because with Echo, I'm kind of rambling around here. You typically, and this is straight from Bonnie Inouye's mouth, okay? A lot of these principles are based on what I learned from Bonnie Inouye. So they were taken down off of Mount Sinai on panels. Unless Bonnie's listening, then I'm really in trouble. But you want to, because it's all warp emphasis until you get to rep, which is warp faced, right? But this is a warp dominant twill effect. So you want to use about half the grist of your warp for weft typically. And that is what I did. I used 1/22 silk. And so all you get are these little bumps of pattern, subtle enough, and 12 shafts, and a combination of an aberration of rep. But let me let me go back to the basics, okay? We started with echo. The most obvious step forward with echo is shadow weave, because with shadow weave, you're using two colors in the warp, right? In this case, as I say, echo is a twill-based technique. So this is going to be a twill-based design with shadow weave. Trompe is writ, and in this case, we are using the same yarns, warp and weft. This is 12 shafts, 6 up and 6 down in the tie-up, because you want one warp to show while its partner is showing underneath.
Weaver's trumpets writ
Is treadle as threaded.
and trumpets writ, they
Spelled TROMP.
Oh.
You probably lost a couple members with that. And so now double weave. I was like, you know how when you start to weave, you go, I can make fabric. I mean, we're so 21st century. It's like, I can make fabric. I can make cloth. Well, when I was able to weave double weave, it just blew my mind. I'd never even, 4 shafts, I can weave 2 fabrics. Well, I started to do this with this technique, double weave. Here we are with the same tie-up, the same threading. Now we're using what is a double weave tie-up, and you can see where the tie-up shows half of it looks like plain weave and half of it looks solid. Well, that's because we're alternating sides. Treadle 1, we're weaving plain weave on the top, more or less. We're treadling up. It's tied up for plain weave. And then the second set of 6 shafts are just up. But then you go to the next layer. So you see the treadling looks so odd because you're doing top layer, then bottom layer. But that is again on the same threading using the same warp. So let's just really go down. I find it was very helpful for me to go to the real ABCs of what is echo. Here it is on a straight draw. So if you were to consider that your threading, if you look only at the blue warps, it's a straight draw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, Fiberworks allows you to click a little button and it says parallel repeat, and all of a sudden it's just Fiberworks says, oh, you've got 8 shafts. We're going to divide those in half and we're going to put in an echoed threading 5 shafts above that. So every red thread is 5 shafts above its next door neighbor. So the threading, if you haven't done echo and you take a workshop in it, you find the threadling boggles your mind. People get really frustrated. They're used to, a certain sequence of events. This often will seem to have no rhyme nor reason, and this is why. Okay, we go 1, 5, 2, 6, 3, 7, 4, 8, 5. Well, this is where people who wrote as far back as Strickler and Olsner coined the term corkscrew twill. We corkscrew around. 5 cannot go up to 9. We do not have 9 shafts. So you corkscrew around. The loom doesn't think of it any different. It's the next thread going up. 1. So 1, 5, 2, 6, 3, 7, 4, 8, 5, 1, 6, 2, 7, 3, 8, 4, and you're right back. So corkscrew twill is essential to echo because we have a limited number of shafts, unless you're weaving on a TC2, and then you shouldn't be listening to this talk anyway. Alternating colors in the warp, AB, weaving 2 parallel lines, warp emphasis design. Again, I'm going to go back to Bonnie Inouye. When I took this she had this concept of this course, and I've added a few and tweaked this and tweaked that when she stopped teaching. But she said, you really want about, your set should be somewhere between that recommended for twill and that recommended for double weave. So it's kind of a very dense set. You really, and I love it because then I get to show off my painted warps. So that makes it warp emphasis. It's not, I mean, rep can be as much as quadruple what double weave, the double weave set would be. No, but this is warp emphasis. You start with a straight draw, and now I'm going through the Fiberworks approach, okay? Straight draw, 8 shafts, 4/4 twill tie-up, Trampas Rit. That's how I start designing. And then I add an extended parallel threading, extended because of that corkscrew twill. It extends around and around and around the number of shafts you have. So now we have 2 straight draws on 8 shafts with alternating threads, always separated by a 4-shaft interval. Add warp colors, 2 or more alternating. Before Echo, we wove corkscrew twills. So here you are with Ulsner in 1911, a handbook of weaves, and look at it, particularly the figure 21 on the right, not the bottom one, but the one above that. And it's, that's not, it's like 10 shafts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 6, 2, 7, or maybe it is, I can't count. 5, 1, 6, 2, 7, 3, 8, 1, 9, 5, right? 1, 2, and then you see what it is. It's in 2 colors and it corkscrews around. So Olsner was writing about it. Well, if Olsner was writing about it, it's telling me that the designs were already in use in mills in the 1800s, right? So it's that old. He says, it is especially effective where the warp is dressed one light, one dark, each color forming a separate twill. So this is nothing new in a way. And in weaving, there never is anything new under the sun. Then we get to Strickler in 1991. Look at the top left diagram, 1, 5, 2, 4, 3, 7, 4, or what? 1, 5, 2, 4, 3, 7, 4, 8, 5, 1. And she says, the design is especially prominent when the 2 twills are different colors. So it took out, and then if you look at the bottom, just to put in a good word for interleaving, those are manifold twills are really effectively interleaved. In other words, they're not paralleling each other. They're working in different twill lines, alternating. So that's another story for another time. In 1996, in Weaver's magazine, Alice Schlein introduces a system she calls Echo, based on networked threadings. So that was when computers came into play. Those of you who know of Olivier Masson in France, basically translated from the math, a 1938 paper by 2 French mathematicians on how to mimic twills in mimic circles and curved lines in weaving. And computers allowed us to click a button and do that. So Alice's first Echo designs, when Alice created the concept using alternating colors in that gorgeous circular scarf there, she was saying it's networked. Nowadays, we've expanded the definition. It doesn't need to be a networked draft. And networking is another subject altogether also. So let's put that in another file. And then in 2014, Marian Stubenitsky's Weaving with Echo and Iris came out. And I consider that an advance in weaving akin to, you know, Atwater or Davison. In my humble opinion, that's because of my tastes, I suppose, but it's still not a how-to book. It's a study group book. And she doesn't say, here's your draft, use this yarn, use this set, use this bead. So people are left, and it's been translated from the Dutch. So people are left wondering how the hell to get her designs done. And I hope this presentation helps you move forward with that. It's a brilliant book. So now it's become a very popular technique. It has a twill-based tie-up and treadling. So if you're going to call it anything, you're going to call it twill. Considering that we have only 3 genuine structures, right? Plain weave, twill, and satin. Classic echo tie-up. Classic. Not always one that will save you from having too many floats, but this is where I always start with designing. Half of the shafts are up, the other half are down in an advancing twill tie-up. The set is dense. Okay, I've said that. This is a falling stars 8-shaft echo pattern. All it is an advancing point twill. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up and 5 down. 6 up and 5 down, 6 up and 5 down. And then for the treadling, it's 5 up and 4 down. And if the diagram is so small, but the you see in the tie up, there is some plain weave in there. I did that because if I did a 4 up, 4 down, advancing twill tie up, you'd have too many floats. So often you do have to play with your tie up. You never really want floats. Well, again, I parrot Bonnie. I mean, I just do. She said you really don't want floats of more than 5. You know, depending on the thickness of your yarns, but I've held to that rule of thumb, except for double weave, because those are 2 fabrics. If you divide floats of 6 by 2, you've got floats of 3. I mean, a sample by Hetty Lyles. Because she always knocked it out of the park. Okay, Hetty started, and here's where we get into color blending. I'm all about complements and value and how to maximize them. So she started out with a yellow warp, which most people wouldn't even come near, and then a dark teal. Right? So they're not analogous, but they're definitely a strong value difference, which is very, very helpful in designing echo, because you want your patterns to be distinct from one another unless you've got something else in mind. And then she used a very, I think it's a turquoise weft. So you can see this is that falling stars design, how the floats give you the illusion. So the first bottom piece is a turquoise weft. The second piece is a black weft. But you can see this hazy progression from, you know, kind of a darker yellow to a bolder yellow to a black outline on the top to a lighter blue. So I just love the nuanced colors we get and values. Nanette Baumgardner did a sample warp of, this is gin. This is the same threading again in gin. So gin you can use 4 up and 4 down. Why? Because you've added tabby tie downs every other shaft. That is all gin is. That is all turn takate is. Twill tie up with tabby tie downs in between. 1 weft. Gin is ancient. I'll tell you about that later. So, but it allows you to give the image of the illusion of solid motifs. So that's why for me, it's such a favorite technique. This is all gin. And I don't know if I can. Thank you. We can, I mean, I'm happy to take questions as we go, because otherwise I'll talk too long.
Just if you could repeat the question for the online group.
Yes, so did you say that the tabby and the pattern weft, whatever, are the same? Right? Same weft?
Yes. I mean, a lot of people in my workshops have varied it, but I think it when we start to talk about warp emphasis designs, I want to emphasize the warp motifs. I don't want to confuse what's going on in the weft. So I know typically like in crackle, well, do we vary the color? We put in a plain weave tie down. But the reason we do this is we have a very stable structure. You never get floats of more than 3. And you get very bold motifs. It's a little teeny bit heavier hand, but you can see on the drawdown on the left that I've used 5, 4 ascending point twill treadling with tie-ups in between. And it just, any design you want to get, you can just, click on Fiberworks, insert tabby, I think it is, and you're good to go.
Fiberworks is a
Fiberworks PCW is a weaving program that I seem like I'm selling so many weaving tools, but that's my weaving program of choice. It's gotten to the point, I don't even, if I heard Patrice say this once, that you use handweaving.net for a lot of your designing. So you can create a with there weaving information file there and download it to your computer. So there are many, many ways, and the commands, are the drop-down menus, warp, weft. So they're often quite similar. So with Jin, your command would be under the warp, insert tabby. And you're allowed to do a lot of what ifs once you start with computer designing. It saves, it's like, I call it a flight simulator. It's not ever exact. But I think I have almost a success ratio. If I see something I really love on the computer, the success ratio is well over half 50% of translation to the loom. So it's well worth trying out. All right, takate is another, I think it's a westernized term for Jin. It originated in China. This is a textile in silk pattern of clouds and animals, which is a very traditional pattern, 1st through 3rd century China. That is Jin. But what you see with the patterns is there's also a draw, they had pattern looms back then. So it's almost a draw loom kind of a technique. So the Jin is a base that allows these elaborate designs. Pattern and Loom, John Becker. It's another classic. If you really want to do a deep dive into warp-faced compound tabby, which is Jin, or weft-faced compound tabby, which is takate. Jin is turned takate. He describes it as polychrome warp-faced compound tabby. Well, it's not warp-faced again. Compound means that if you remove the pattern picks, you will still have a ground cloth, and that's like overshot. It means that there are 2 things going on at once. 2, I don't want to say structures, 2 cloths being woven at once. He writes that the polychrome silks are undoubtedly the finest achievements of Chinese weavers in the Han Dynasty. With Jin, we see the earliest evidence of the capabilities of pattern looms. So you'll see on the diagram on the right, this plain weave type structure, which makes it so stable. The warp is going 3 over 1 under, in the alternating pink colors. And then its next pink neighbor is going 2 steps up, right? No, 1 step up, 3 over 1 under. And then in between are the plain weave tie downs that look like a plain weave setup. And they're jumping all over because the pattern is in movement. So sometimes you will get a warp of 2 over and 2 under, but that's, the biggest diversion. This is a shadow weave sample on 12 shafts by Marianne Arizumi. Now, understand, Marianne has chosen 2 different warp pairings, and then she's alternated her wefts. What she also did was she re-slayed, because shadow weave is essentially plain weave. The floats are never more than 2 to get to another geometric form. So you really want to set shadow weave at plain weave. when I teach the workshop, I just tell people, just go ahead and weave, shadow weave. This is just to get the point in your head. But Marianne re-slayed, and I was the same, that's this, a shadow weave. This is Alice. Echo is similar to shadow weave in its warping scheme. In a shadow weave threading, each warp end is followed by a warp end in a contrasting color, a specified number of shafts away. And you can alternate that. You don't have to say, I've got 12 shafts. I can only echo my first color by 6. You can do it by 2 or by 3. You can offset it, and it's so cool. But beware, you can't do double weave at that point. I hope I'm right, Patrice. You're gonna go home and call me? I'm the comedian who has picked her out of the audience now, and she's gonna get it. I really do think you can't get double weave with an echo that isn't half, because I mean, right? Because you've got to alternate sheds. The weft is arranged similarly. A twill tie-up is used. Echo uses one weft color, however, and therefore only one shuttle. All right, I'm going to listen to when people like Alice speak, I listen. So I do follow the rules for the most part, unless it's really useful to me not to. Shadow weave is a color and weave effect, right? Color and weave means what you see is not what you are weaving. That is not the structure. If you looked on Fiberworks at the structure button, it would be plain weave with floats of maybe 2 here and there. Our eye is saying, oh, I see a blue line there and I see a white line there. Oh, they're forming diamonds. Okay. Shadow weave versus rep. The only difference is the set and the weft thickness.
This is the slide I need. It's so close to getting this.
Yeah, I'm not a rep expert, really. I mean, this is the basics, because what happens with rep, if you set it correctly, you're setting it way denser than double weave, right? So often, all I know about rep is often what weavers will do is they will stack their threads, so that instead of all your threads being on 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're going to go 1 is going to be 1 through 4, and 2 is going to be 5 through, you know what I mean? So you don't have this massive web that you have to bang through, right? Just caution about that. Shadow weave is a balanced weave. Rep is warp face, right? That's the same thing right there. All I did on the right one was I changed the thickness on the computer, which is what happens on your loom. The dense set and heavy weft rep makes a thick fabric, which is why it's loved for table runners and table mats. But I submit to you that rep with a finer or at least a lighter lighter grist, thick weft, you might be able to do tops. You can certainly do like panels for the back of a garment. I love garments, so I'm talking garments. You can do cuffs, you can do collars, you can do a peplum. So, rep doesn't always have to be just for the kitchen or the dining room. What is double weave? Double weave is yet another structure that can be woven on an extended parallel threading. Now we're in Jennifer Moore's territory, and Jennifer Moore teaches you block double weave. I mean, she teaches you block double weave symphonies, really, but this is not block double weave. This is known as integrated double weave. It's not stitched double weave either. Stitched is very uniform. Your tie downs are very uniform. You see here in the picture on the right, this is again that falling stars pattern, but this time it's tied up for double weave. So where you have all black, you're going to have blue or periwinkle or gray or whatever you want to call it on the bottom and black on the top. That's what Stubenitsky calls a pocket. That's what I call 2 layers. Where you have that blue and black mixed, that is integrated double weave. That's one fabric woven, 2 layers woven as one. The tie-up works. What the best way to learn double weave is to use a table loom. And when I first did it, I'd be going, okay, this one's up, and then I'd get down underneath. I go, okay, so that one's up because this one's up and that one's up there. And literally, I'm just not a math head. I literally had to stand upside down to understand that when you leave a treadle down, you leave a shaft down in double weave, that's going to be your up warp on the bottom layer. So the tie up, if you do an alternating top layer, bottom layer, top layer, bottom layer tie up, the second treadle looks like a photo negative of the first. You have to think black is white and white is black. I'm talking designing more than structure. But double weave is my favorite. And this one's never going to get down, right?
Good one.
So this is double weave on I thought it was somebody snoring. Because you don't know what it's like to go to a workshop and you see somebody in the front talk and somebody in the front seat's going. I think somebody's probably listening, and it happened to me on Zoom. I'm looking at the camera, somebody's dead asleep, and it was a really good weaver too. So what what happens here is you see what's orange here on 24 shaft. This is 24 shafts. You can do this on 8. Is blue here. And it is. And these are 2 separate layers. But what makes the pattern is the integrated portions of the motif. And so what I did for the top was I wove the 2 layers. And when they're pockets, an active weft, I used 2 different wefts. I used inactive and active. An active weft in one portion of the pockets will draw in. And what happens to the other side of the pocket? It has nowhere to go, so it buckles, it puckers. It's very slight pucker, but in this case of this dress, just enough to give you a little bit of shaping around at least one portion. This dress was woven as one piece on the loom, and I just folded it. Well, I got so sick of all these incredible seamstresses at Convergence, and I thought, I just can't play their game. So I'm just doing this. And it got in, so that's all I want. All right, double weave. So here's a falling stars pattern on 8 shafts, 2 versions of double weave. I think the first part is just a straight draw. I can't distinguish. I mean, she did another advancing point twill rather than the one I did on the second layer. But you see, the second layer, there's navy and pink in some of the motifs, and then solid pink in the other. Those are the pockets. And that was something that kind of took a minute for me to get used to with Stubenitsky, was pockets. Her language will be different, so be patient. The double weave sample on the left here is way too thick for any dimensional weaving that I would ever do, but I wanted to show it can be done. One layer is 18-2 Jagger spun, which, by the way, is going out of business, but I think Jane Stafford has said that she has found a source. She's sourcing it. And there's going to be an announcement in Handwoven about a Zephyr replacement. Just saying.
And Handwoven is a magazine.
And Handwoven, thank you, Katie. Handwoven is kind of one of the key magazines for the weaving community, nationally, if not internationally. So if you weave with an inert weft, on one side of a double weave pattern in this sequence of echo to shadow weave to gin to rep to double weave. We're in double weave now. If you weave a weft that is inner, and in this case it's 10-2 cotton, and then you weave a weft that will full, not felt. Felt is a fiber that you're mushing. Fulling is yarns that have been woven, and then they adhere to one another like blankets. It will full. Once it fulls, it draws in, and you get these accordion pleats. Now on the right, you see, this is again the 12 shaft pink and green pattern. And again, Marianne Arizumi from the West Coast used an inactive yarn on one side of her double weave set, an active yarn on the other. You have to finish it. You must finish it. It probably won't do much until you do. Echo drawdown on 8 shafts, and I don't know why that's there, other than to tell you, if you look at the tie-up, you see how I'd had to mess with that tie-up, and then you go up. I hope this is available on other weaving programs. On Fiberworks, you go up to Tools, drop down, and it says Float Search. And I'm always looking for floats of more than 5. Gin drawdown, you see the difference? Echo, gin. Again, echo, gin.
Drawdown is the top.
And the drawdown, well, somebody might correct me on this. I thought the drawdown meant the entire thing, threading, cloth, tie-up, and treadling. But then there's a draft word too. Is a draft the same thing as a drawdown? I don't know. I'm using these terms loosely. Somebody, okay.
I think it's the same.
Say louder. I think you're right.
If you could repeat that.
Okay, so the smart person in the back row said, yay, Nancy, the drawdown is the finished cloth in the center. It's a drawing and showing you how it works up. A draft is then all of the instructions.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get our terminology right. I didn't do that. Okay, shadow weave, draft on 8 shafts, trompe as writ, that means it's treadled just as it's threaded. Plain weave set, same yarns in warp and weft. Rep weave drawdown. Any difference? Thick and thin in the treadling. Alternating thick and thin wefts. Set can be up to 4 times that for plain weave. That's it. It wasn't 4 times that for double weave. I misspoke. Traditional rep, if Rosalie Nielsen were here, she would have corrected me. The set can be up to 4 times that for plain weave, for traditional rep. Double weave draft on 8 shafts, weaving 2 layers. This is a networked treadling. There are workshops on networking. Basically, you're taking a straight draw and you're chopping off a sequence of twill diagonals that mimic curves. And the loom will do that. It will produce a cloth because it's twill based. So networking typically looks all chopped up like that. Now you look at the tie up at the top. Do you see what I mean by photo negative? If you can see the first treadle, 1 through 4 is down. And then the second half of the 8 shafts are plain weave. Look at the second treadle, 1 through 4 is plain weave, and 5 through 8 are up, which is down, because it's on the other underside, okay? And it goes up in an ascending twill fashion. It looks abstruse, but once you start understanding that you're just using your down treadles for the undercloth as up treadles and your up treadles as down treadles. If you live in Alice in Wonderland world for double weave, you'll get it. And again, remember, this is not block double weave. This is much more, it's twill based and it's more forms and motifs. Designing Echo with Fiberworks or with any weaving program or on graph paper, should you choose to do so. So this is going to be a networked design. You're going to start with a curving design. And remember, weaving is essentially pixelated, right? So my curving design, that's the first on the far right, that's not a concave curve. That's a bunch of lines. It could be a profile draft for all we know. That's a bunch of lines that appear to the eye to be more or less a concave curve. Convex curve in the middle, kind of sloping. So I've drawn it, but I've been forced to adhere to 8 shafts. That's why I'm using something pixelated rather than a free-form drawing. All right, so that's my design line for networking. Then you get your computer going, and all you do is click redraw on network on the warp drawdown menu at the top of the screen. And that's what you get. So let's go back. No. Concave, convex, sort of. Steep ski slope, easy ski slope, right? And then look here. Concave, convex. It's had to corkscrew around at the bottom because the twill lines can't extend above 8. Steep twill descent, kind of easy twill descent. So can you see how the curves are mimicking our original design? What networking has done is chop that up into rearranged twill lines. And then you click parallel repeat, and this is where I say it looks like a chicken got walked in ink and then just walked across the diagram, because what the heck does that mean? And that's where people, where I start to lose people in these courses. They're like, this threading is nuts. What you made a mistake, right? And I'm like, no. All right, let's look at the beginning. And the beginning is always on the right in your drawdown. 1, 5, 2, 6, 7, corkscrew around to 3, 8, corkscrew around to 5. Okay, so we're going 1, 1, 5, 2, 7. Oh, it's 1, 5, 2, 6, 7, 3, 8, 4. Okay, 1 plus 4 is 5. 2 plus 4 is 6. 7 plus 4 is 3. 8 plus 4 is, what did I say? 5, 4, I can't remember. 8 plus 4 is 4. So it's just, you've just split it up and paralleled it. Even though it looks ridiculous, it will weave up. And then you click, what did I do? See, this is what presidents are for. They don't go, oh!
Carol is the tech person, so.
Carol, did I do it right? Okay, so then you add 2 colors. And in this case, it's purple and black. You're creating your Echo tie-up. I always start with 4 up and 4 down because I'm testing it out. And that's what my design starts to look like. I love advancing point twills for treadling. So it's like, okay, this is a detailed version, right? But what's the matter with this? Look at the floats. It's on an unviable fabric, right? So I broke it up. And you'll see now that the tie-up is 2 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 2 down. So I added some plain weave. Now this is an entirely viable fabric. And because in America we weave upside down, in Sweden their drafts are always the threading, and then the drawdown ascends from the threading, just as you would see it on the loom. But in America, I don't know why we decided this, but our drawdowns, our drafts always follow below the threading. So you're going to be looking at your weaving from the top of your drawdown on down. I know that's so simple, but I have to remind myself of that. But if you look at what was your concave curve, look carefully at the beginning. It becomes convex, What was your convex curve became concave. There's a slope after that and another slope. Okay? So those are the connections. And here's tabby added for gin. So you can see why people like gin. The motifs are more solid. Network. All right, I'm going to go fast here. A network is basically a grid that symbolizes what a twill might do. A twill cloth would look like this. And this would be a 1-3 twill. 1 up and 3 down. So we're playing tennis by the rules. We're weaving according to the rule. Here we have a network based on an initial, a rule of 4. If you look at the cloth, at the drawdown, any of those gray squares is always 4 to the left or right, 4 to the top or bottom of the next gray square in either column or line. So that's your starting point. That's what this is your canvas for working. You establish what your network is, which is a number, your initial, excuse me. Initial in French was beginning. And it's basically based on a straight draw of 4 and a tie-up of 4. I'm doing an initial of 4. You can do an initial based on twill. You can do an initial based on satin. You can do an initial based on rose path. You can do zigzag. You can do an initial of 2. You can do an initial of 7. But typically people do an initial of 4. You start with a design line. I said, okay, I'm going to draw some curves, and I'm limiting this to 8 shafts. You don't even have to do that. That's another story. And then using an initial of 4, you mark every gray box that falls within 4 boxes above the design line. That's all it is. And of course, when you get to the far left and you've got your design line on 8, what do? You corkscrew around so that above 8, I don't have a laser pointer, but you're going to find a gray box on 3 or 2 and so that's where you have to it's called telescoping. You're chopping off a part of your curve and plonking it beneath the hill that is your curve. It works out quite well. So that's what our design looks like. Basically networked, but not paralleled, right? And this is what it looks like paralleled with different colors. And I think if you can use your imagination, you can get a glimpse of what happens. I've added complements of blue and orange. Excuse me. I forgot that talking does that to you. And I got this nasty cold that is pretty much gone. It sounds like I'm still infectious. Anyhow, using complements in warp and weft, you get this wonderful interplay of colors. Okay, you don't need a network design to create an echo pattern. This is an M's and W's twill, known as gebrochene, and it's based on a pattern from the 16th century. So it's a broken twill. Trompe is writ. I've altered the tie-up. Start your design by creating a parallel threading in Fiberworks. Here's the drawdown. Advancing twill tie-up, advancing point twill treadling. This is adding tabby for gin. Another plug for gin. So all you got to do, if you wanted to go home and monkey around today, but it's a beautiful day, so don't do this because you will be indoors. Go to your computer, go to handweaving.net, find a point twill, parallel it. create your treadling, original trump is writ, is the original design line. 4 up and 4 down tie up. Click and count your floats, and you've designed your own echo design. Here's one for a simple point twill. This I found on handweaving.net. I love this. This is not echo, you see, though it's one color in the warp, one color in the weft. So I said, okay, I'm going to make it echo. Now, the problem with doubling the number of warp threads is you're elongating your pattern, you're widening your pattern. So it's squished. But that doesn't happen when you do gin. So that is gin as that. And not, maybe that may not be a big deal to you. That may not appeal to you. But for me, this appeals because of and variations on this because of the complements. I've wove it up. And I'm going to go through some student samples. Are we going over time? A little bit.
Going to your.
All right. People got things to do, places to go. Student samples, Virginia Lee, 8 shafts. There's light blue and dark blue in the warp. Orange in the weft. Ruth Ronan stuck with blue and green. I told her her colors aren't going to work. It's going to fail. This is not going to work. And I love it. This is double weave. And you can see that on the right is the cotton. That pucker. On the back, you're looking at the wool. And that's on 8 shafts. Corrie, she's not here. Is she still?
Yeah.
I think this is gorgeous. And this gives you the color potential. She's got a turquoise and dark blue warp. Look at that. This is a woman who used a painted warp for one of her threads and then yellow for the other, golden. Be careful when you use a variegated. It's not painted, variegated. Be careful when you use that because you have to have a really different color contrast or really different value contrast. Otherwise, it starts to look muddy. And I can say that from experience. This is when you get your complements, simultaneous contrast. It bongs, the color just looks, doesn't this look embossed? Yeah. It's flat. It's 4 shafts. This I fell in love with. Okay, if I came to you, Nancy Nagel, and I said, is Nancy still here or is she decided? I said, okay, Nancy, I've got a great idea. I'm going to use a gold wool and I'm going to use chartreuse. Of course, no, I've got the wrong person. Nancy would go, yes. All right. You got a gold wool chartreuse, and that's my warp. And then I've got a gold wool and red, and you'd be like, good luck with that. Or some people would be. This woman used, this is double weaving, which is why I love it. This woman used blue in the weft. And it's just, to me, it's beautiful. And that's 8 shafts. This woman used, whenever somebody says, you really should just perk up your ears. She goes, I just took some samples and put some white in and variegated yarns. So there's shadow weave. Now this is unorthodox, right? But she managed to get a different enough value using white in the warp and I think turquoise or dark blue. So white and turquoise and black and dark blue, right? Shadow weave, and then I think rep on the top. And I love that. This was me. I chopped up my treadling. In other words, it's my threading. It was not sequential. So it's a ratcheted effect. Oh, that's 16 shafts. That's this guy over there, painted silk. And of course I ran out of painted warps. So I shouldn't say of course, but I was winging it. And so I had colors, warps A, B, wasn't wide enough. So I painted 2 more. No, I had A, B, had plenty of A, not enough of B. So I dyed a 3rd one, C. So the two stripes sort of on your both sides, those are AC. This is gin. Now, I want to talk more about weaving, and I think you guys should be set free, but I'm just going to say the search for the perfect weft. It's a minute aspect of this, seemingly half the grist of the warp, but I can tell you it is not easy to find the perfect weft. This was the most ugly thing I had in my whole stash. I'd had it there for 20 years. It looked like dried blood. It really did. And I was never used it. And I thought, it's silk normal. It's nice and lofty. And I tried it, and it turned what was a Chagall scarf, of deep navies and hot reds, and to a Santa Fe scarf. And I loved it. And that is the 24 shafts double weave. And that's a very complicated pattern I found on, I can't remember, what's that? Oh, there's a program somewhere. And this was when I got so excited about all the different patterns that I wove them all. And the squares there are actually you literally just carve out squares in your double weave tie up. It's amazing. Entirely different design. So at the end, creativity is an act of magic rising up from your self-consciousness, from your subconscious. Thank you. Any questions?
Any question?
Yes.
These are either more that, but I saw when we been told there was a photograph.
Yeah, there
You know
are
what?
portions.
Could you come up and ask the question?
She just, I heard her.
Okay, do you mind repeating it for the online group?
Oh, okay. So she's saying, do most of these designs require 8 or more shafts? And you saw a design for 4 shafts. When I teach this course, I have a lot of designs for 4 shafts. Believe it or not, it is more challenging because consider you're cutting the number of shafts in half, right? But yes, I do. Blooming leaf works really well. There's an issue of Heddlecraft I think it's December of 2018. That is the inimitable late great Janie Taylor, and you can buy back issues, by the way. And she goes at that with an entirely different approach, and it's wonderful. And it's 4 shafts is in there. Yeah, I think if it is in December, it's May. Do you know, Lynn? You don't know. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to announce that the Bucks Pennsylvania Guild has booked me to the April of its workshop on the basis of the Harriet Shaw.
Yeah, we're going to be doing this.
Lynn is announcing that the Bucks County is hosting Denise in April 2026 with a workshop based on the Harriet Tubman shawl.
So I'm going to create designs for 4 shafts and 8 shafts and probably 12 shafts, and then a couple wonky people who might want to do more. Yeah.
Sophia, did you have a question?
Oh, just had a comment that the Echo and Iris Mary Stubenitsky's book also has not very many of them, but a few 4-shaft examples.
Yeah, she does.
And we have that in the library.
Yeah.
So the New York Guild Library, which you can email Gail, and get shipped for the online crowd. What's the name of the book? Sorry.
Marian Stubenitsky's book is Weaving with Echo and Iris, and it came out in, did we say 2014? Yeah.
We have an online question.
Please repeat what's said in the room for people online, because
Okay,
we only hear one side.
So, Lynn, you said that I will be teaching in Bucks County, and it's basically an echo scarf based on a pattern I have here that I dedicated to Harriet Tubman. And it's going to be what month? I can't remember. April 8th, 9th, and 10th, and it will be available. There will be patterns available for 4 shafts, 8 shafts, 12, and if, upon request, more than that.
There's an online question. Paul, Paula, if you could unmute and ask your question.
I just want to say hello. Denise, it's
This
Paula
is
from
Paula.
Illinois.
Paula, okay, Paula, back in oh God, I don't even want to think about it. Back in 2020, Paula's with the Prairie Guild, right? Prairie.
Illinois,
Paula, what is it?
Illinois Prairie Weavers Guild.
And we got online, we were gonna teach her, we were gonna cancel it. And Paula worked at Bell Labs. So I'm like, oh, okay. And she was game enough to say, let's do this. Let's put together a Zoom class. And you taught me, Paula. And I've spent the rest of the, lockdown having a great time meeting weavers all over the country. It was the coolest thing. Thanks to you, by the way.
Well, you're welcome. It was great. I'm glad to see you.
Any
Nice
other
to see you.
questions here or online? Well, this has been great. Thank you.
So I'll be
Denise
back
is a rock
next week.
star.
Next week, I'll be talking about this still. I'll be right here.
Thanks for joining. We're gonna close the Zoom and we'll see you next month.